Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 just wrapped up, and it's arguably the best arc in anime to drop in a long time, whilst Demon Slayer is coming off a timid Season 3. But it's time to put Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer to the test and see which one is better going into 2024. They're often compared when first released and are the faces of new-gen anime, so let's see which fanbase I'm gonna piss off today. Here's the criteria. Number 1 is story, number 2 is characters, number 3 is gonna be animation, number 4 is fights, and number 5 is the world. There's gonna be a lightning round at the end with fun, random stuff, but also remember, you may weigh everything differently depending on what you value more, so it's not an end-all be-all, but here we go. Now, the Demon Slayer story is notoriously pretty simple and can be summed up by the title demon slaying, but no. Yes, there is more to it than that. The central plot points are typically about demons infiltrating an area with Tanjiro and the gang, clearing them out, example, the mansion, the forest, the entertainment district, and a little flip script in the swordsmith village. Now, Jujutsu Kaisen, on the other hand, is a super complicated plotline. Geto is plotting this, the Jujutsu elders want that, Toji is here to cause mayhem, Gojo does whatever he wants, and all the plot points work against and with one another to tell a cohesive story where Demon Slayer has a lot more linear plotlines. What do I actually mean by that? Because that can kind of just be a whole bunch of nonsense. So it can be summed up like this. Jujutsu Kaisen has a plot-driven story. Geto takes over Shibuya, every character goes in and their plotlines activate from there, whereas Demon Slayer is a lot more character-driven. And for the sake of not having too much overlap with the character section of this, I won't go too deep on it, but the real hit moments of the story are when Tanjiro overcomes Daki, where he failed against Akaza, leading to the death of Rengoku, whereas JJK is a lot more driven in these events that affect multiple characters in the larger narrative. Demon Slayer also keeps the plot simple, and simple is not always bad, because this allows its character-driven story to shine, and it's not trying to get the message confused, but through other elements, it's highlighting that simple plot in the best way possible. I don't think there's many people that watch Demon Slayer for the plot anyways. I don't want to harp on it too long, because I feel like it would just be dragging it out, but Demon Slayer has a solid 7 out of 10 story, whereas JJK is sitting around a 9 out of 10. JJK just constantly throws curveballs after curveball at you, from Gojo dying to getting sealed and then Geto being controlled. There's a lot of moments where you're left sitting there like, no, this can't be the end of the episode, whereas Demon Slayer is a lot more spectacle, but you're not really watching for the plot. Moving on to characters. This is where everything is going to get real spicy. I'm also sick, by the way, if I sound like a nasal idiot, but Demon Slayer takes time and curates connection with characters that are all simple but fleshed out. It's a meme at this point, but basically every villain has a 1 to 2 episode long backstory, as well as a Hashira, and even the side characters in the Swordsmith's village. A lot of them are funny, like Zenitsu and Inosuke, or cool, like Tengen and Rengoku. They're all deeply characterized and have something to latch onto. Jujutsu Kaisen has a lot of characters, and I mean a lot of characters, and each of them have their own unique set of abilities, their own importance to the plot, which is impressive, because you would think there would be a lot of bloat with all these new introductions, and JJK does a good job of making characters feel different from one point of the story to the next. Young Gojo feels entirely different than Gojo age. Itadori goes through a whole transformation in Shibuya after Sukuna kills everyone, but at the same time there's a lack of connection to these characters because of how little time we actually spend with them. I think in between Gojo's backstory and Shibuya, JJK really needed a 4 to 5 episode mini arc with a more laid back slice of lifey style to characterize the likes of Nobara, Nanami, Maki, and even Itadori and Megami a bit more. When Nanami dies, of course it hits hard, especially if you watch it in succession with season 1, but you didn't really spend that much time with him. And with Nobara, I feel like you learn more about her when she's right about to die than any other point in the series, and it's almost awkward and funny in a sense, because she kind of just pops right in front of you. Demon Slayer, on the other hand, has a lot of build up to characters and very clearly progresses them. Inosuke is a perfect example, which I have a whole video on, by the way, but Inosuke at heart is a boar-headed fool, that crazy character that adds spice to the story, but then all of a sudden he's bawling his eyes out when Rengoku dies, because he always viewed himself as the strongest, and then was completely helpless against Akaza. Tanjiro, after losing his family and losing Rengoku, finally defeats Daki, but feels more of a sense of relief than anything, and even Nezuko goes through a character journey of becoming more human and of course stepping into the sun, and like I said, every character stands out a lot with their own unique quirks. We have Tengen being cool, almost a hype beast. Tanjiro is your pretty basic shonen MC, but that stands out amongst all the other characters. Zenitsu is a little bitch, and he has the horny quirk. Inosuke is a crazy and pretty awesome character with the bowler head. How could Inosuke not stand out? Rengoku is just so good-natured it's freaky, but this does work against Demon Slayer because all the characters remain static. They aren't going to change much at any point, and they do become angry at times. For example, if Tanjiro sees a human die, yeah, he's probably going to rage kill the demon, but it's not like the scenes that follow after. Tanjiro is going to all of a sudden start acting rude and angry because this demon pissed him off. JJK, on the other hand, like, that boy Itadori is shook, and even even some of the characters like Megami are gonna change after all that stuff that happened in Shibuya. So in totality, I feel as though Demon Slayer is like an 8.5 out of 10, whereas JJK has an 8 out of 10. Even though the Demon Slayer characters are simple and basic, you still feel a strong connection with them despite the fact that they don't change much and they all stand out despite that. The pace of the story also helps keep new characters coming at the right times, whereas JJK could have added a lot more depth, especially to their MC. Number 3 is animation, and if we had this debate a year ago, I know what we're saying, right? I don't think we're having any form of discussion at all. But Jujutsu Kaisen came out with some hands. Like, Jesus Christ, how do you pick Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer? JJK had some of the best scenes of all of 2023, and I think cleared all of Swordsmith Village, but you really gotta compare Shibuya to Entertainment District. Is the peak of the Gitaru fight better than the peak of Shibuya? See, I don't know much about animation, so at the expense of sounding like a clear amateur and a complete idiot, I'm going to talk about my favorite scene from JJK Season 2, and that's Itadori and Chozo's fight. The lighting, the animation of the subway was so unique, and it was honestly jaw-dropping between the neon glowing signs to the lighting in the bathroom. The way Chozo seemed to be struggling to control his own power, it was just sick. There also seemed to be a greater focus on cinematography as opposed to just making something with the most amount of effects as possible on screen. There was also moments like Sukuna vs Mahagora, Sukuna vs Chogo, Gojo vs Tochi. All of this was peak. But this is just crazy. And even this scene where they're all yelling. So here's what we're gonna do, and I think I can say this confidently, and it's the safest way to do this. They're both 10 out of 10s. Every episode feels like movie level animation. I don't know enough to get into drawings and stuff like that, so 10 out of 10 is the easy way to just get out of here and not make a complete fool out of myself. Moving on to number 4, fights. Both of these two anime are straight hands, like all the time. Just like most shonen, everything significant in terms of plot, character development is mainly done through fights, and both of these two have some of the most iconic fights in modern anime. Demon Slayer featuring this sick battle with Inosuke and Zenitsu vs Daki, whilst Tanjiro and Tengen are fighting Gitaru, interchanging the battlefield while adding twists to the fight that actually make you question who's gonna win, besides the twist that cutting off the head won't kill them. They do that every time. But still, the fights in Demon Slayer actually feel like characters are pushing past their limits every single time and never feel like a cop-out. Every time the heroes win, it feels earned, and even though there's times where Tanjiro gets bailed out, it feels natural to the story because of the level of training, and all the fights have interesting elements to it with characters with unique abilities, particularly with the Dream State on Mugen Train, as well as when they're fighting the Upper Moon 5 and he kept splitting apart. It genuinely felt tense because of the situation. Jujutsu Kaisen goes another route. Everything is earned. Unless it isn't. Itadori's not on the level to fight Chozo and basically gets knocked out to beat him, and one of the most underrated fights in Season 2 was the fight against the Inverse guy. I felt like an idiot watching it because I genuinely could not figure out his ability in any capacity. I had no clue what the route to beat him was, and yes, the power system plays into it, and I don't think there's a single soul on the planet who understands JJK's power system, not even the mangaka Gege himself or herself, whereas Demon Slayer's power system, a literal toddler could explain it to you, and really it doesn't matter at all. But I don't think the complexity of Jujutsu Kaisen system works against it. Gojo vs Toji still makes sense, even if you're like, why is this Toji guy without cursed energy so strong? It's because Toji's a fucking badass. All the fights feel intense, and the fact that power scaling is held in such a high regard in the JJK world helps it because there's no ass pulls. Itadori's not beating Mahito without Todo, regardless of him killing Nobara or not. Even the scale of Sukuna vs Chogo and Magagora helped scale just how strong these characters are. And the story does a good job of limiting some of its strong characters too, like Gojo in the train station when he's fighting all 4 of them at the same time. Demon Slayer does a good job with intensity too, especially with the whole train battle. Akaza just shows up, and this is the first time you're seeing a Hashira and Upper Moon throwdown, and you're just sitting there like, this guy could beat Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu at the same time with no effort at all. And even the fight against Gitaru and Daki felt earned because of the time put in between the two battles and the emotional stakes that are put into Demon Slayer fights that make it feel all the more important. The reason the fights in both of these worlds work so well is largely in part due to the fact that the characters die in these worlds. Something like a character being permanently injured or literally dead isn't something out of the question, and adds that level of intensity that's needed in any anime fight. But with that being said, I'm gonna say Demon Slayer has 9 out of 10 fights, and Jujutsu Kaisen has 9.5 out of 10 fights, as both the scale, the intensity, and the plot implications for the fights in JJK are done perfectly and make sense power scaling wise, as well as work to illustrate what every character is and their function in the story. Whereas Demon Slayer, it can be somewhat easy to predict who's gonna win what fight, and some of the fights can fall flat, like in Season 1 with the mansion, as well as some of the fights in Season 3 with Muchiro didn't have the same level of consistency as the fights in Season 2. Moving on to the world. Now, the setting in Demon Slayer Slayer is pretty cool in the old time of Japan and the entertainment district, as well as the Hashira temple. They're all interesting, and the fact that you can form pockets in these worlds to hide from demons, it's a good plot device that leads to 6 settings like Tamayo's house. But nothing is really expanded on an insane level, and you don't really see any crazy setting that blows you away apart from season 1 and 2. Jujutsu Kaisen being in basically modern Tokyo is done in a way that's different than any other shonen that takes place in modern times like Chainsaw Man and My Hero, because the Jujutsu world is somewhat hidden away from normal people. But also, it's a lot like Percy Jackson, the fact that some people can see curses and some can't, and it leads to 6 settings like Shibuya where there's actually normal people there. And a lot of the time anime like this just remove the normal people completely when they want to have their fight or big moments, but JJK doesn't shy away from that in any capacity. The setting matters big time, and normal civilians aren't just going to shy away. I'm not going to harp on this too long because I feel like setting isn't too big a part in either of them, and I feel like it's also heavily swayed on personal preference, but I'd say Demon Slayer is a solid 7.5 out of 10 setting, whereas Jujutsu Kaisen has an 8 out of 10. I feel like the modern Tokyo aspect is just really sick. Seeing some of the sites in the anime, then people compare them to real life locations and them being spot on, it's really cool level of detail. Demon Slayer being old school Japan is definitely cool, but the setting isn't really anything that blows you away. Now to the lightning round. Humor goes to Demon Slayer. Inosuke alone and his dream was peak comedy. MC, so that's comparing Tanjiro to Itadori. No. To Utah. No, I don't think so either. Gojo? So Tanjiro? Character designs, Demon Slayer, I would wear one of those cloaks. Antagonist, JJK. I'm tired of the demon sob stories. We gotta get a demon that's a pure menace. Aesthetic kind of goes with setting, but the dark tone and setting of JJK is super sick. Lore, the JJK Sukuna era seems way more interesting than the Muzan Kokoshibu era. Power system, I wish I understood curse energy, man. I really wish I had a PhD in it. Soundtrack, probably Demon Slayer. Special is a banger though, but I listened to Akaza vs Rengoku on my way to school, so maybe I'm just a loser. So all in all, which is better? What anime is the king of new gen shonen? Who takes the crown? Who will I piss off? The better anime is Jujutsu Kaisen. JJK feels like a complete breath of fresh air, and Demon Slayer does have moments. Maybe there is an element of recency bias, but I've read all of both, and that would make it even more difficult to choose which one is better. But just from the anime perspective, the JJK anime is on another level of hype. There hasn't been an anime like this for me in a while, where I was so hooked to see what was going to happen in the next episode, as well as it's just literally impossible to predict. There are so many twists and turns and big moments, whereas Demon Slayer in season 1 and 3 definitely had moments that fell really flat and left me wanting a lot more. So if you enjoyed this, check out this JJK vs One Piece debate and leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget, we're just getting started, we're gonna stay consistent, and I will see you in the next video.